there, I'm Clarence Waldron. Welcome back to Black Muse. Tonight's guest is Christine Houston. She's the creator of the iconic 227 sitcom that starred Marlon Gibbs. It's still on reruns now. You can still see it. It's still funny as ever. But listen, I'm going to stop and let me just get to know Miss Houston with you guys. Hey there, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, well, we're glad that you're here with us today. So let's dig right in. When you wrote 227, did you imagine that it would last this long? I mean, it's still out there in reruns. Did you imagine that?
Never in a million years.
Mm. So you felt that it would just last for what, 3 years or
I didn't think it would ever go on television.
oh, well, let's start about that. Let's start right there. How so? How so?
I was a student at Kennedy King College, and the students asked me, I was the oldest student there, and they asked me what was my major. And I didn't want to say I wanted to be an actress. I was taking a lot of writing courses because I loved English. And when I told them I was majoring in journalism, which was not really the truth, they asked me to write a play because they went to a conference every year and they could win all the uh, contests for different theatrical things like extemporaneous speaking, one act play. And they really wanted to win. They could not win playwriting because they didn't have anyone coming from Kennedy King who could write a play. And they felt since I was in journalism, I should be able to write a play. And I decided that I would accommodate them, but I didn't think for one moment that it would go anywhere or win any contest. I didn't know what to write about, so I wrote about my childhood because an instructor at the first college that I went to was not Kennedy King.
Hmm.
It was another junior college on the south side of Chicago that I attended, where it was closer to where I lived. And I went there and I had an instructor who said, if you wanted to be successful in the first thing that you write about something you know about. And in order to comply with the students' request, I decided to write about my childhood because I knew about my childhood and I knew how happy a childhood I had. And I didn't even know that I was poor because I enjoyed my childhood so much. So I knew that the what I was writing wasn't going anywhere. But because the students wanted to enter the contest, I decided to do that for them. And I did.
Hmm. Okay. Now, didn't you win that contest?
Not only that, it won the contest, and the students were so happy and excited when we got back. It was at a college away from Kennedy King. And when
Yes.
we got back, and the head of the department found out we had won the playwriting contest, they knew, and when I say they, it was the dean of theater and the head of the theater department decided that there was a contest sponsored by the American College Theater Festival based in Washington, D.C. And they offered a contest. And they felt if my play was good enough to win the contest that it had won, maybe, just maybe, it could win another. And so they
Hmm.
suggested that we enter it, but it would cost money. And the school didn't have any money. And it cost $60 to enter the Lorraine Hansberry, $60 to enter the Norman Lear. That was $120. And at that time, the theater department could not afford to put up the money for me to enter. So the students decided they would have a bake sale. And for weeks and weeks they sold slices of cake, maybe cookies, but everything they sold was 25 cents. That was a long way from the $120 that they needed. But eventually they made that money and they were able to put the play in the contest and it won both of them.
Okay, so that was the Hansberry, and how about the Norman Lear? Did it win that one as well?
Who won first place? Uh, Norman Lear, second place Lorraine Hansberry, and it would have won first place Lorraine Hansberry, but the judges decided that it would be better to give 227 second place Lorraine Hansberry and encourage other writers by giving first place to another writer.
Mm, okay. All right. So let's go back to your childhood. Some of the characters that we know from the TV series. I mean, was there a Sandra in your building? Was there a Mary in your building?
Mary was my best girlfriend's mother. My best girlfriend lived on the floor up under me. Her last name was Nickerson. My last name was Dickerson. One letter difference. I thought we had a great friendship. We did everything together. And I decided to write about the friendship that she and I shared. And I felt it might be good entertainment. At least it would show how a friendship could last throughout a lifetime because we were still friends at the time that I wrote the play.
Right. And then you grew up on what is it? 227 East 48th Street. So that's where you're from. Yes.
Yeah. And it's now called Bronzeville.
Okay. Got it. Got it. Got it. Let's move on to Norman Lear. So 1978, you won the award. Is that when you met him formally?
Yes, part of my prize for winning the Norman Lear was an all expense 2 week trip to Hollywood. And during that trip, I would be given a chance to write for one of his shows, and he had six at the time.
Mm.
And I could choose the one I wanted to write for. And I knew a Black writer who was already on the Good Times show. So I chose the Jefferson. And I was allowed to write an episode for the Jeffersons. And that way it would give me the opportunity to become a member of the Writers Guild. The only way you could become a member of the Writers Guild is to write something for that is accepted for television. And in order to write something that is accepted, you had to be a member of the guild. It was a catch-22.
Mm.
But by me winning the prize, and automatically part of my prize was to put me in the Writers Guild because I was writing an episode of the Jefferson.
Mm.
That allowed me to become a member of the Writers Guild. And I was excited and ecstatic, and I enjoyed my 2 weeks. But when I came back to Chicago, I was a ticket agent for Chicago Transit Authority, CTA. And I had had a taste of Hollywood, and I really wanted to stay there and go back and learn how to write for television.
Mm.
And I called Norman Lear because I had met him having won the contest, and he was very, very gracious and accepted my call and asked what I wanted. And I told him I wanted to come back and try to learn how to write for television. He sent me a one-way ticket, and back I went.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. So you had a good friendship with Norman Lear.
Excellent.
Yeah.
In fact, when I got back there, he put me in an office with a secretary, paid me a salary every week, and allowed me to write story ideas for each one of his shows, one by one. And unfortunately, they were winning shows, and the executive producers felt they didn't need a little black housewife from Chicago to enhance their shows. They were winning shows already without me. So they never accepted anything that I suggested. And he continued giving me 6-week contracts for each one of his shows. And he had about 6 at that time. And I stayed in Hollywood all that time, writing and accepting the rejection from all these executive producers.
But also, you made history as the first Black woman to create a TV series.
Well, that happened many, many, many years and months later.
Okay, tell me about that.
After I did not succeed in getting anything done with any of his 6 shows, I came back to Chicago, and after several months, I didn't go back to CTA. I had a license to be a beautician, so I went to work in a beauty shop. And during that time, I received a call from Norman's executive producer of his company, and her name was Virginia Carter, and she called me to see. She thought I was in LA, but I had gone back to Chicago, and she wanted to know if I was available to be interviewed by Alex Haley, who had written Woods. And Alex and Norman were getting ready to do a television series about a little black boy and his friend, a little white boy in Mississippi in the South, becoming friends. And they wanted a black writer to work with Alex, and they chose me if he would accept me. So I flew back to LA and was interviewed by Alex for a whole day. I rode around with him, went to his home, and he interviewed me in his car because he was very, very busy. And the next day, I got a call saying he was impressed and wanted me to be a writer on that show. And so for another 6 weeks, I stayed in LA writing story ideas for the show that Norman and Alex were going to create called Palmerstown, USA. And unfortunately, there was no one interested in the little white boy and the little black boy becoming friends. So it was never picked up by the advertisers. So my chance there was gone by the way of Sandusky.
So let's speed up to 227 days. So did you sell your stage rights to the play in order to get on TV? How did that go?
Well, what happened, the head of the theater department at Kennedy King College decided that my play was very, very good. And no matter how long it took, it was going to be successful. So the 2 heads of the department started sending my play around to different universities and neighborhood theater companies in order to try to get them to do my play, which a lot of them did. And one of the universities was in California, and they contacted me to ask me if I would come in. First, they wanted to know if I would allow them to do my play. And I, of course, was excited and very happy to say yes. And then they called back and wanted to know if I had any knowledge or influence on anyone in Hollywood who could come in and be the star of opening night. And I knew Esther Roll because I had become friends with her from Good Times. And I knew Lynn Hamilton, who was the girlfriend to Red Fox on Sanford and Son. And she was from Illinois. And in fact, she was from Chicago Heights.
Yes, yes.
And I had a relationship with her. So when I asked Esther if she could do it, she was already working on a play. Then I asked Lynn if she would come in. They would send her the script and she would learn the lines and come in for opening weekend and do 2 rehearsals. And then they would fly her back to LA and they would, by word of mouth, be able to advertise because they didn't have money for advertising. She agreed to do it. And she came in, she and I both came in on Friday and she rehearsed. And on Saturday, she rehearsed. And then Saturday evening, she did the opening night performance. And on Sunday, she was back in LA. But she had the script in her hand and she loved the play and she took it straight to Marla's theater.
Oh, oh.
And she suggested that Marla do the play at her theater. But Marla was very well liked by the audiences that watched the Jefferson. And
Sure.
she didn't want to do my play because she didn't want to be the lead character who was not a very favorable person because she meddled in everybody's business. And Marla had to be begged and coaxed in order to do my play at her theater. And the only reason why she did it was because the Jeffersons, which she was very popular on, was getting ready to fold after, I think, 11 years on
Yeah.
the air. And they were trying to find a vehicle for her to keep her on television because she was very popular. And they could not find one. They tried several and it did not work. The advertisers would not pick it up. So she was convinced to open my play at her theater and star in it. And she finally did. And she could not close it. The audience, by word of mouth, kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. And she brought me out for every opening. She would do a run and close it. And then people would be begging to come back and she would bring me back for another opening. And finally, after it received such acclaim, she decided to do an evening with ABC, an evening with CBS, and an evening with NBC. NBC took Friday night, CBS took Saturday night, and ABC took Sunday night.
Wow.
And before it could get to Saturday or Sunday, NBC saw it on Friday and they jumped on it right away.
Ah, okay. Okay. All right. So now, when you look back at it, do you feel you received a fair deal? Do you get residuals today as it runs and reruns and all that kind of stuff?
Well, first of all, they wanted me to give up all rights, stage, film, and television.
Oh,
I had an attorney who asked me, do you want to keep any of your rights? I said, I am a playwright. I intend to always do my play, and I will not give up stage rights. And my attorney was told by Marla's attorney that Marla and I had a relationship, and she could get those rights from me. And there would be no television show unless I gave up all the rights. And my attorney told me, do you want to keep your rights, your stage rights? I said, yes. He said, do not talk to Marla. I said, what? Don't talk to Marla. She and our friends. She's my insight to Hollywood. What do you mean don't talk? He said, do you want your stage rights? I said, yes. He said, don't talk to Marla. I said, okay. So for a week, Marla called me, and I didn't talk to her. But every day I would call after she called my house, and my husband would tell her I wasn't home. And she would say it was urgent for me to call her back. And I would call my lawyer, and I would say, Marla called. And she said, there won't be a television show unless I give up all the rights. He said, do you want your stage rights? I said, yes. He said, don't talk to Marla. After this went on for about 3 days, the 4th day, she called and told my husband that if I didn't return her call, there would be no television show. I immediately called my attorney and I said, Jake, she said, if I don't give up the stage rights, there will be no television show. Jake said, do you want your stage rights? I said, yes. He said, don't talk to Marla and don't call me anymore.
Ooh.
And I threw that script up on the closet shelf. And for 8 months, I cried and thought I had made a very huge mistake. And I said, I blew my chances by not talking to Marla. All of a sudden, I remembered what the head of Kennedy King had told me. No matter how long it takes, you have a great piece of work. And greatness has a way of surfacing. And I believed that. I could hear his voice. And a few days after 8 months, I got a call from a friend in California. She said, they're doing your play as a television show. I said, what play? 227. I said, how do you know? It's in the reporter. And anything in the reporter, and there are 2 newspapers that are like the Bible in LA. And the reporter, and I forget the name of the other one, sorry to say, but the both of them had the story that Marla was going to do a television series called 227. And they changed it to 227 because I believe they were angry with me for not giving up those stage rights, and they didn't even invite me to be a part of the show.
They did not invite you to be a part of the show as a consultant or anything like
that? As a writer.
As a writer.
And Marla went to bat for me. And she told the executive producer, if she's good enough to write a play and give us all jobs, why isn't she good enough to work on this show? And they called me. They had already filmed a couple of episodes. So I wasn't in on none of the beginning. But it aired in September of, I believe it was 85. And they didn't call me until October and invite me to fly out and be hired to work as a term writer on the show. And everybody on the show made more money than I did, had a better position than I did. But I was excited because at least my foot was in the door and they wasn't shutting the door on my foot.
So now today, do you get residuals from the reruns and all that?
I get residuals, but here's how they really decided to keep me out. You only get residuals from shows with your name as the central writer. And you have to pitch an idea, and they accept that idea and send you to first draft in order for you to get that creative credit. And so I was there almost 3 years before they allowed anything that I pitched to get through. I pitched an idea called the Men's Club, where Lester was getting an award, and it was a men's club where no women were allowed. And I had pitched it several times. The executive producers would not accept it because they said there's no such club and it would not be believable. One day, the two other Black writers, Ronaldo Ray and Bootsy Parker, came to my office and threw a newspaper on my desk because they knew I had pitched the men's club twice and had been turned down. And they knew there was no show being done with my name on it as the sole writer of that episode. And when I looked at the article, it said these women had gone to court to be allowed entrance to this club that was for men only.
Okay now.
And I took that newspaper and like Ronaldo and Bootsy had slammed it on my desk. I took it to the executive producer's office and slammed it on their desk. And they allowed me to do that show. And NBC liked it so much. It was the first show of that new season. And by that time, the show had been on the air for almost 4 years.
Wow.
And then my mother came to visit me and had a massive stroke while visiting me, and I had to take her back to Chicago. And I told God, if he would let her live, I would take care of her myself, meaning I would not pay anybody. I would take care of her myself. And he let her live, and I took care of her. And I did not go back to Hollywood. And just when I was getting ready to go back, after she made her transition, my husband of 40 years was diagnosed with dementia. And my commitment to him through my marriage stopped me from returning to LA. And while taking care of him, I decided to go back to school because I had graduated from Kennedy King, but that was for an AA, and I needed to go back and get a BA. Okay. So I enrolled in Chicago State, and I got my BA there. And while as a student at Chicago State, they did not know until I was getting ready to graduate who I was and what I had done. And when they found out, of course, they went crazy over the fact that here I was, a student there, and they didn't know it. And I didn't tell them because I wanted my grades to reflect my work and not who I was. And after I graduated, I was asked to be guest speaker at the next graduation, which I was. And then I wrote a book called Laughing Through the Tears while after I graduated, which was about taking care of my husband who had dementia. And I have been writing off and on ever since and enjoying the rest of my life that God has provided for me. I don't know why. And every now and then I do know why, because I still teach. I have private students and people call me for advice. And then I do guest speaking.
Okay. So with your teaching, how would you describe your students, the Chicago State students?
My students, they make me feel like I am part of their family. They made
Mm,
me feel like teaching was what I should have been doing all my life.
right.
They helped me to know that I was a part of helping to make these students who they would become in the future. And it was very, very rewarding. I only taught for 12 years there, but it made me feel like God gave me several gifts, and teaching happened to be one of them.
Great. And you were honored with an exhibit at Kennedy King College just last year. That sounds so exciting. Tell us about that.
Uh, they put an exhibit up in the library at Kennedy King College, and they called it From Kennedy King to Hollywood. And it it showed my journey from Kennedy King step by step and all the people that I met. And it's still there. And I think this is the last season for it because I believe that there will be another venue for it to be displayed for people to see because very, very few people still know or realize that that television series is based on a play written by a Black
Yeah,
person.
yeah, yeah. So are you still in touch with Marla Gibbs today?
Yes, she calls me, especially when she wants some. Yes, yes, but I call her sometimes just to check on her.
Okay.
And I know she is, I know how old she is. And I'm getting close to her age also. And we had a very, very good relationship, and I still maintain that relationship. But the story uh, from Kennedy King to Hollywood has a lot of information to tell people how that journey took place and the ups and downs of that journey.
Yeah. You mentioned a reference to Good Times. Were you thinking of the guy Eric Monte?
I met him. He gave me a book.
Hmm.
This book must be 600 and some pages or more.
Hmm.
But I remember his story. And they really did him wrong. But he he sued and 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 got redemption. But they blackballed him totally out of Hollywood. So he did not get uh, some of the value of his talent as much as I did.
Wow. So now you're gonna turn since you made reference to Molly Gibb, so you're gonna turn 90. Isn't that true?
That's what the age says. But really and truly mentally,
Mm,
uh, I don't feel like I do know that mentally I have lived and experienced a lot. I am a veteran and I've done a lot in these 90 years, and I've enjoyed most of them. And I have a spiritual foundation, and God has been a very, very constant part of my life, and all the things that came my way came through my faith in Him and what He could do for me. And it helped me to, my spiritual foundation helped me to go through some of the things that I felt were unfair treatment to me, but I don't dwell on that, and I just accept the good, and I realized what I was told by uh, the faculty there at Kennedy King in the beginning, that greatness has a way of service. I don't consider myself great, but I consider the person I serve is great and does great things for me.
before I let you go, I gotta ask a question. I always ask this question. Who inspired you? Let's go back to your childhood days. Who inspired you? Who said that you have a gift for writing, that you're gonna make it one day? Who were those people?
No one, no one said that I had that gift. My father, uh, I remember when I was a little girl, my mother and father divorced. My father got custody of me. My father was typing uh, a story called Negro Confidential. He was the type of man who wanted to be the first black to do anything and everything.
Hmm.
And I watched him in all the things that he tried to break into being black, and it it rubbed off on me. It made me realize that color would not stop me, because even though the opportunities were rare and few for a black woman, but because of the way my father pushed ahead to do things, and in the play 227, I have I dealt with my father, and after the divorce, my stepmother, and the things that I went through because of my father's determination to push me forward and get a better life for me through the things that he did and undertook. He always wanted me to go where I was getting the most out of life. At that time, black schools were not getting the books or the teachers that they really deserved to push the students forward. So, in his way, he felt that if I went to a school where the white kids went, they got books and things, and I would be able to get the same thing that they got. So
Mhm.
when I graduated from grammar school, which was an all black, he put me in Limblum, which was all white,
Ooh,
on the south side of Chicago.
yes.
And I was the only black there. And believe it or not, I was followed. They hired a private detective to follow me every day for 2 weeks until they
Hmm.
found out I did not live in the district. And so they put me out of Limblum.
Ooh.
And so rather than put me in the Sabo, which at 227 East 48th Street, I was in DuSable district. But instead, my father sent me all the way to the west side to Lucy Flower, an all girls school, which I did not like. They didn't have a football team or a basketball team, and they specialized in home economics, sewing, cooking, childcare, and home management. And that I went there until my junior year when he moved me and his family to Park Manor. And my new play that I'm writing, which is an extenuation of 227, is called Welcome to Park Manor. Because welcome that we got was not what you think that anybody would call a welcome.
Ooh.
Back in 1954, 55, when I moved to Park Manor. And because I write comedy, I have taken the comedic part of 227 and put it into Welcome to Park Manor, and still let people realize the history of how Black people lived during the 1950s.
Wow. We are almost out of time, but I need to ask you at least one or two more questions. How would you like to be remembered? How would you like the world to remember you?
I would like for people to remember that I did the things that I was comfortable doing, and that my goal in life was to motivate and get young Black and brown students inspired to realize their gifts and to tap into those gifts, and that they may be told no a lot of times, but a yes is around the corner. And if they persevere and they really, really work toward what they want to be or do, they will achieve their goal. But you can't just sit back and think that it's going to fall from the sky. You have to work for it, and you have to do something to enable the opportunity to come to pass. And I would like for people to remember that I always, always believed in going forward and trying to do what was on the straight path that God had put you on. And never, ever give up, because help is around the corner. I tell my students, if you give up, how do you know that you are not going to make it? How do you know that you cannot do what it is you want to do if you don't try to do it?
Wow. Great words. Great words of wisdom to live by. I appreciate that. Anything else that you want to share? Because here we are now. Anything else on your mind?
I'm still writing, and I'm just hoping and praying that one of my students will do something that will show what hard work and perseverance would do. I want to see somebody come be an example of what I stood for and what I tried to teach them.
Bam. I've loved talking to you. Love talking to you. But listen, before we close, I got to give a quick shout out, a thank you to Howard Sandifer and his wife, Darlene Sandifer. They are the founders of the Chicago West Community Music Center, a great school on the West Side. And this whole video podcast was their idea. They said, let's have lively conversation with newsmakers like Christine Houston. So thank you for that. And also I want to say to our viewers, we got to get these numbers up, y'all. Please click like and subscribe. Please click like and subscribe. Thank you very much, Christine Houston. I really enjoyed this.